Illegal immigrant who had been deported 5 times in the past and killed a woman in San Francisco last week. We turn to someone who's been warning us about the illegal immigration crisis here in this country. Joining me now is the author of Adios America, the left's plan to turn our country into a third world hellhole, Ann Coulter. And boy, your timing on the book, look what happens. This is big stuff, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, it could have been any weekend. I notice we've all been warned all week, watch out for ISIS this weekend. And no, instead, Americans were killed by immigrants. This wasn't the only illegal immigrant, and doesn't have to be limited to illegal immigrants. The government is allowing people who have no right to be here into our country, whether legally or illegally. There was also an illegal immigrant who hammered his wife to death in Texas over the weekend. That was an illegal alien wife who was killed. So it isn't just American citizens who aren't being protected, but these Republicans and, of course, Democrats who claim to speak for, the poor, the downtrodden, the working class. No, they're speaking for big business who want their cheap labor and will externalize their costs, both in terms of taxes and in terms of the crime rate. What's striking about the San Francisco story is that it happened in a place liberals might go. Usually it's out in the suburbs where Lupe the maid lives, and the rich never have to be faced with it. I mean, you hear Republicans saying, and Democrats, of course no one wants felons in this country. Well, what are they doing to stop it? Chris Christie was on Fox News this weekend saying, telling us once again that fences just don't work. The human spirit will overcome them. It's like saying buckets don't work. Of course fences work. Americans aren't stupid. Why doesn't Chris Christie say that to Israel or China? Because their fences work just fine. And, why don't we just try a fence?
You point out that people who live behind gated communities are the ones telling us fences don't work. In your book, you say something very provocative, I think. You say it might be worth paying more for your yard work. What do you mean?
Right. Well, I think that was right, as I described an illegal alien who had raped a young girl at her parents' home when he had come to do, he was the landscaper, so he had come to do the work and broke in and raped this young girl who he was living not particularly in the shadows. And I mean, the main point of that story was how the media are always hiding that these are immigrants, sometimes illegal, sometimes not illegal, who are committing a lot of these heinous crimes. It's always, North Carolina man indicted on child rape. So frankly, we don't know after this weekend exactly how many Americans were killed by immigrants in drunk driving accidents, in heinous murders like this one in San Francisco. It'll take a few weeks, maybe a year, to wait for the court transcripts for the media to even tell us the truth. The government won't tell us the truth. The media won't tell us the truth. But the people in America know what the truth is. Unfortunately, the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal don't. And most of these Republicans are busy sucking up to the rich and don't care about the workers. I'm so sick of this nonsense about Donald Trump being the racist here. He's the one who is speaking for working class Americans, for African Americans. How about, have you seen the black teenage unemployment rate? Why shouldn't they be getting those jobs? It's Donald Trump who is speaking up for them. Boy, don't think Republican voters aren't keeping a list of who's naughty and nice on denouncing or praising Donald Trump right now.
Since you brought that up, let's take a listen to a couple who denounced him. Listen.
The fact is, I've said very clearly that Donald Trump does not represent the Republican Party. I was offended by his remarks. To paint with that broad a brush that Donald Trump did is, he's going to have to defend those remarks. I never will, and I will stand up and say that those are offensive, which they were.
I don't think he represents the Republican Party, and his views are way out of the mainstream of what Republicans think. To make these extraordinarily ugly kind of comments is not reflective of the Republican Party. He's doing this to inflame and to incite and to draw attention, which seems to be his organizing principle of his campaign.
All right, and Jeb Bush called Trump's comments extraordinarily ugly comments. I don't know. It seems to be resonating. The one moving up the polls is Donald Trump.
Yeah, he sure is. And now I have a new soft spot in my heart for Ted Cruz. We always knew he was smart. He's been bad on legal immigration in the past. He wanted to triple what even Rubio wanted, but he seems to have burned that bridge. So I think he's going to be pulling ahead in people's estimation. But Jeb Bush, wait a second. He said illegal immigration was an act of love. Is he saying every act of immigration was an act of love? Was this guy who murdered that beautiful woman in San Francisco, was that an act of love, Jeb? And I believe the first one you played was Rick Perry, who is the pioneer of the argument that fences don't work. Buckets and wheels don't work. It's the craziest argument I've ever heard. Have they heard of East Germany and the Soviet Union? They wanted to keep people in. We want to keep people out. Fences work just fine.
Yeah, Governor Perry a year ago sat down, and I remember this distinctly. He was in an interview, and he said, yeah, we have a lot of illegals coming across our border in Texas. He said, I'm not worried about the children. I'm worried about the murderers and the rapists coming across. Almost the exact same thing that Donald Trump said a couple of weeks ago or 10 days ago, but now he seems to change his tune. Where is the GOP on this, Ann? Where is the GOP's stance on immigration? Is it trifurcated?
Mostly it's really awful. That's why it's going to be very easy for someone like a Ted Cruz or maybe Scott Walker. As I describe in my book, Romney does have a 20-year history of being very good on immigration. I was sorry to see that he, too, condemned Trump's remarks, because this is a big opening. It's the same opening Ronald Reagan had when the Republican Party was officially for the Equal Rights Amendment. Much of the Republican Party was for gun control. Much of the Republican Party was for abortion. They are standing with the elites and the Wall Street crowd. You get one Republican to come along and speak straight about what the people want to hear, and the media is always surprised. Oh, he's doing so well. There's a reason Trump is doing well, and I mean, at this point, we just want a Republican who can do math and figure out if unless immigrants are voting 51% for Republicans, you're losing Republicans, and post-1970 immigrants, legal immigrants, are voting 8-2 for the Democrats. So this is a suicidal strategy, and I think some of the smarter Republicans will wake up and clean up in the primaries.
And Mr. Trump, he didn't back down. He doubled down a couple of times over the weekend. Yesterday, he tweeted about Governor Jeb Bush, saying, quote, this is his tweet, Jeb Bush will never secure our border or negotiate great trade deals for American workers. Jeb doesn't see and can't solve problems. And then one more, he tweeted about Governor Perry. Rick Perry failed at the border. Now he is critical of me. He needs a new pair of glasses to see the crimes committed by illegal immigrants. And I point out, a year ago, he did see those crimes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of these Republicans talk tough when they need our vote, like Marco Rubio did, running against amnesty, but then got to Washington and spent 3 years pushing amnesty. The Republican Party, their base are working class white males and their wives. That's when Republicans clean up. That's when the two landslide presidential elections Republicans have won in the last century, Nixon and Reagan, that was appealing directly to that base. And that is exactly what Donald Trump is doing. He's enormously popular with the working class. He's quite popular with black people who want those jobs.
You know, he's not popular. He's not popular in Washington, D.C. right now. And we're going to leave it right there. Thank you for joining tonight.